Yo, what's good, beautiful people? It's your boy, Emmanuel, aka Power Pappy. Welcome back again to the channel. Finally, I'm getting to record this list of albums. Okay, I can't wait to talk about albums. But before we get into our top 50 albums, I thought I would make some honorable mentions of albums that I thought are worthy of a top 50 mention, but just based on the fact that you can't get more than 50 albums in the top 50. So yeah, just leaking just outside of my top 50 this year. Before I get into my honorable mentions, I would like to even discuss the parameters of how I even chose my top 50 this year. Usually I would have some international albums be involved in the conversation for the top 50, but for the sake of the channel and the objective of the channel, at least trying to have more African based music discussions and more Afrobeats, more, you know what I mean, something on the continent, something that actually needs more talking about. That's basically why my channel exists, to be able to talk about African content that usually doesn't get as much discussion, especially on this platform called YouTube. So I wouldn't be having international albums on my list this year. So UK albums, you might not find them here, with some exceptions, except if it's actually a dedicated Afrobeat strong influence on it, then yeah, it's an African album. So with that being said, my favorite international albums in 2021, in no particular order. First off, I'm just gonna rapid fire through them. Tyler the Creator, okay, with Call Me If You Get Lost. I have Kanye with Donda. I have Lil Sims, with an album that I thought was phenomenal and even worthy to even have a discussion on this channel, because she's of Nigerian descent, and she has a song with Obongjaya too that was quite creative. Point and Kill, fire, but this album was definitely great. I think it's definitely her finest project yet. Another album that we need to talk about now, if this album was to be included in my list, number one album for me personally it has to be Dave, okay, with We're All Alone in This Together. Yes, 2 Afrobeat records, arguably 3 with the one with Snow Allegra if you're trying to make that count. But oh man, I love this project. If you haven't seen my review, definitely go check it out. And of course, can't forget Doja Cat with Planet Her. So yeah, basically those were international albums that I really rated in 2021. Now let's come back home to the albums that I thought were worthy of my top 50 conversation, but just a little setback in some of the elements of the album that I thought maybe required an honorable mention as opposed to a top 50, and it was hard to make an argument for these albums compared to the ones that made my top 50. And now for my honorable mentions from back home, in no particular order: Bella Shmurda with High Tension 2.0. Interesting body of work here. This is a follow-up to his very critically acclaimed High Tension debut EP, and this was a follow-up to that, and this was him also trying to expand his audience with a lot of the name dropping of cities that you could see throughout the entire project. You could also see, unfortunately, some contradictions in the narrative that the album was trying to pass around, like the message the album was trying to pass around. But nonetheless, this was an interesting project. Bella was still very evident in his strong Fuji influence. Next up, I have Buju with Sorry I'm Late. If you haven't seen my review for that, I think it's out. After having an amazing run of singles and features, Buju put together an EP that a lot of people definitely ran with the narrative that he's not as strong as he is on features as opposed to his singles and solos, which I would disagree. Don't knowing on past records, if you listen to Buju before the feeling or the mood happened, then you would know that he definitely has the ability to hold an entire song by himself. But this EP, I thought, lacked a lot of replay value. I think he solely focused on his songwriting, which I thought was brilliant on many moments, especially on the intro track. And sorry, Daniel Benson and Never Stop. In terms of replay value, maybe one exception with Kilometer. I know Kilometer is more of a danceable, it's more of a club record, and I think that's the song that I think it's noteworthy of carrying the EP and giving the EP more life. So I'm looking forward to the remix that he's gonna have. His Liski. Not a bad project, but compared to all the other projects that I have up there, I just felt like nah, there's no way this was gonna it's gonna make a strong argument for the other ones. Another honorable mention would be Mayor Kun with Back in Office. Interesting project. There were moments that were really, really high moments, and there were really, really steep down low moments. Okay, on this project, but definitely not the best Mayo moment in terms of albums. Definitely not better than his debut. But yeah, Back in Office was a noteworthy album that I enjoyed so many moments, but there were a lot of huge duds. Okay, cringy moments. And you can see him try to evolve as an artist, but the evolution wasn't really there. It wasn't really there. It wasn't a strong argument. Okay, so that would be Mayor of Lagos. I said Mayor of Lagos. That would be Mayor Kun with Back in Office for an honorable mention. Another honorable mention that I have to give is a nod to Laycon with I Am Laycon. Okay, now this project came after honestly one of the worst albums this year. So shall we begin? If you haven't seen my review to that, it's definitely it was a weak moment that felt rushed. That felt like Lakers still had a whole lot to prove in terms of like transitioning from that Big Brother narrative. But he came back with another project that really tapped into his strength, which I think is rapping. Okay, and actually having fun on the record, sounding excited to be on the song, and actually delivering like you're intentional about it. And that's all I could see on Laycon, on I Am Laycon. A very strong project considering what we had gotten from Shall We Begin. I enjoyed the hip hop cuts here, like the intro was fire. The Monrovia cut too was great. I definitely enjoyed it, but then again, still not strong enough to compare to the top 50 albums that I have. Another mention would be DJ Neptune with Greatness 2.0. This is an album that had an interesting moments because the direction of the album alone is already setting it back. It's a compilation album, it's a DJ album, so you're gonna have pretty much everything. No Anywhere Belleface approach, and just people singing about this topic and that topic, different sounds, different. It can seem chaotic, and most times many of these really high profile artists come with their leftovers, or those come with a lazy performance on records. So you could see that evidently that's always going to happen on albums like this, and sometimes dated production as well. So you're also gonna hear that. But I think there were very interesting moments on this album. I thought the Laycon and Ladipo one was interesting because the YJ performance in that was treacherous, but the two rappers showed up. And but yeah, there was also the Joe Boy and Omale one. Omale really carried that record too. Yeah, there were interesting moments, and then there were like really straight up generic moments too that were quite boring. But nonetheless, an interesting project that is worth checking out. Another mention I would say is Wonder Banton with Original Vibe Machine. I think this was his debut project. Because Wonder Banton is one of the most slept on artists in the last say 5-6 years. He has come out with interesting projects from as way back as African Woman. I'm really obsessed with that record. But Original Vibe Machine was a decent record that quite had quite a generic pop approach, but luckily for him, he was able to catch one, and which is having a moment right now. Is No Wahala, and I thought that was really brilliant. Seeing how that song has really carried a lot of strength and a lot of weight, but then again, still a quite generic project, but definitely still worth checking out as well. Next up, I have Sarkodie. Or rather Sarkodie with No Pressure. Now this was another album from Sarkodie that I thought because following his previous album, which was Black Love. Black Love had a theme, had a voice. I really enjoyed the many like commercial romantic moments that were there. Really packed with great features. I think everybody brought their A game from King Promise to Rude Boy. But this album kind of had like a all over the place kind of mixture. It went really hip hop in the first couple tracks, and then kind of like dwindled into some commercial moments, And I just thought for Soccer Day, I just thought like this were okay raps, this were okay like verses, but nothing mind blowing to say the least. Nothing to say like, oh yeah, this is exactly why we see him as one of the finest rappers in the industry. So for an Soccer Day standard, it didn't really excite me as much. But nonetheless, there were interesting cuts like Coachella and Non Livington with Oxlade. I definitely enjoyed the album to some extent. Definitely worth checking out as well. Another special mention would be Mizzle, okay, with In the Dark. Now, Mizzle was an artist that we kind of like had his moments on TikTok. But if you don't know him, you probably remember him from the videos that would imitate like a Drake or like a Wizkid or like a Oxlade, and he was able to get Oxlade on the record too, so it was kind of a moment around that. With this EP, definitely without a doubt a talented artist and producer. I just felt like he still has some time to get his voice, to make him stand out, to make him unique. But nonetheless, I'm still hoping to see his future projects from now, and hoping he makes a huge statement for himself on the scene. But there were interesting cuts there. I think Sweet Escape was one of my favorites on that album. Strong One Nicole influence, obviously you can see that. Definitely birth of that lineage of vocalists. So yeah, check it out if you haven't. Another special mention in that same light of One Nicole influences, I can see that with Oladapo with his Blind the EP. Okay, this was a strong EP. One of my favorite records out this year alone is on this, and Priceless is another interesting moment too. But yes, Oladapo is definitely a dope act to look out for, and I definitely enjoy this. But then nonetheless, it just didn't make a strong claim compared to the other albums I have for top 50. One of the finest rappers in South Africa, okay, Aries. Okay, with his Today's Tragedy, Tomorrow's Memory, the mixtape. Definitely enjoyed this in the early few months in the year, and in terms of rap albums, this was one of the most anticipated. Kind of went below the standard a little bit. I was expecting a little bit, but nonetheless, strong, amazing moments on this. Like in terms of like hip hop production and songwriting and braggadocio. One of my favorite tracks, Hibachi's on this. A little slight disses there in the South African hip hop scene that I really enjoyed. Another project you definitely want to check out if you're a big hip hop fan. So yeah, those were my honorable mentions. Okay, look out for my top 50 coming out shortly. Let me know if you guys checked out any of these albums I mentioned. Let me know what you thought about them, and yeah, were they top 50 worthy for you? And let me know in the comment section. Alright, thank you so much for watching. I've been your boy Mano, aka Palm Papio. See you guys on the next one.